What is emotional dysregulation?
Like, let's say you're in traffic. Who doesn't get annoyed with someone pulling in front of you? But it's the people who go and like now have to swerve next to them, flip them off, make some sort of gesture signal. That's an overreaction. But also like the level of rage that some people have, that is emotional dysregulation.
Why do you think that's happening?
It can be trauma. It can be a learned response based on childhood experiences, how you watched your parents interact or the people who are your caregivers. And so it's if I watch someone whom I care about and they're constantly in rage or they're constantly frustrated or they're showing all sense of overwhelm, I'm going to learn that and think that it's okay because it's what's being modeled for me.
Read a report by Gallup, and I remember it says that 70% of employee engagement is solely determined by those frontline managers. Like literally their behavior within the workplace is 70% of it is determined by the people that lead them, the people that they have to report to. And usually employees are leaving because those leaders are emotionally dysregulated. I talk to a lot of leaders and they have no desire to go into that aspect of themselves and actually work and deal with it.
You can't expect someone to be emotionally regulated if you are not. You have to create time. You have to be intentional with reflecting how you're coming across, how you're being perceived, and how you're influencing. And if you want to see certain behaviors from the people who you're influencing, you have to be aware of how you're portraying yourself first.
People are always telling people to feel their feelings. And now someone is now saying that, well, sometimes too much feeling your feeling can become emotionally dysregulated towards other people. And then I'm like, now that's confusing. But the textbook definition, because I was like, all right, I need to figure this out. I went to TikTok, YouTube, and there was so many content around it, which was surprising. It's like the moment you tap into one keyword on the internet, the algorithm was like, all right, send him all the products, everything.
Yes.
But the textbook definition says emotional dysregulation. It refers to an inability to manage and control one's emotions effectively. I want to talk to you as someone who's a therapist and get your take on what is emotional dysregulation.
Yeah, so it's something that ideally is learned in childhood, is where you like it's modeled for you how to, because when you're a child, you just react.
Right.
Your brain's still developing. And so ideally a parent comes alongside and they mirror your emotions. So like if you have a big form of sadness, they can appear concerned. And so then the child will pick up based on their facial expressions or kind of body language that's like, oh, they're picking up on my sadness. And then the parent stays regulated. So they don't. So when I say mirror, it's not that they match the level of sadness, but you can see that like, oh, the child is upset. I'm going to appear concerned, but I also appear grounded.
Right.
And so then the child can then pick up that co-regulation of like, oh, I can talk about what's happening or I can calm down myself. And so the dysregulation part is that you don't have an ability to be flexible with how you respond to big emotions.
Oh, gotcha. Maybe I am the one who is emotionally dysregulated. That's why he sent me that, but we're not going to go into that. I read a book called Internal Family Systems Therapy. Are you familiar with it by any chance?
Yes.
Is it the same as, I guess since that goes back into childhood and then basically the concept behind it, I'm going to do my best not to butcher, but please help me. It views the mind as a system where, there are like multiple like personalities from a child. For example, me as a little kid, something happened to me that's traumatizing, that becomes a different personality. And sometimes when we're adults and we do something, we find ourselves in that personality. And then, that's why whenever sometimes someone does something really horrific, and then they're like, wait, it looks like they're a completely different person, because of the internal family systems therapy that I read. I'm not even done reading it, but as you were talking about your childhood aspect, I'm just like, wait, I just read something. Is there any similarities between that and what we're talking about today? So
in IFS is kind of the short term for it. It's where they break ideas into like, these are different parts of yourself. And so, yes, if there's a part of you that got stuck or is a defensive part of you, it might have a different reaction than a more wiser part of you, if that makes sense. But also emotional dysregulation doesn't only involve the IFS system. It's, I mean, that can be in anybody, whether you've experienced trauma or not, whether you had good parent role models or not.
Right.
It's just about that ability to, when I feel something, whether it's anger, sadness, even excitement, do I have the ability to pick up on social cues and also like ground myself back to kind of a quote unquote normal response? Because a lot of the times you can be really excited about something, but if it's like using a scale of 1 to 10, if you like, let's say it's a 3 and you react at a 7, is like, why are you reacting at a 7? And so it's learning how to kind of like, if it's a 3, react in that range versus being out of that range.
Interesting. You know, as you're saying that now, I started thinking about my son. He's like, I feel like sometimes whenever he's excited, he's not just excited. He's screaming, he's jumping, he's flying on people. And it's really hard for him to like come down and be here with everyone else. But to him, he's just like, yeah, I'm like flying. And it's usually not even something much of a big deal. But I think he just wants to be part of that celebration.
Sure.
And he takes it to a whole different level. And usually I'm just like, bro, like chill. What the heck? And then whenever he's sad too, it's like he easily goes into like just immediately started crying. Is there anything specific? I'm not saying like we should like diagnose anything, but just that as an example with kids, is there something behind all of that?
So that's still the brain developing, and that's still kind
so
of
that's normal at that age.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And part of that is like how he's going to take cues off of the people around him. So if they're also matching his excitement, then he's going to continue to be excited. But if you're less excited, but still excited, then over time he will match that.
Gotcha. Wow. That makes so much sense. Because my wife's side of the family, they get really excited.
Okay.
I was like, yo, this is not like, but you know, for me, I'm very grounded and usually, you know, I have this saying where that I have within myself where I don't celebrate anything until I know for sure. Or I would say that I don't jump when someone says, you're awesome, or someone says you suck. I just try to be neutral, but then appreciative of everything on both sides. Because in my head, I always learn something from both sides. So I don't take it as like, this is Abraham, he killed it. And yeah, let's go. So I think with him, it's his mom's side. I'm just going to say that. Apologize. But as far as emotional dysregulation goes, how do you identify that in someone who's not a child, but like an older person? Like, how do you see? Because I saw a bunch of those videos and it wasn't really clear.
Yeah.
And then I remember after watching that, anyone I interacted with, I was like, I think you were emotionally dysregulated. Because I was like, you see it in everyone else. But then we're also in a very interesting time where people are struggling physically, mentally, spiritually, financially. So I feel like collectively we're all feeling some sort of that. But I don't want also people just saying everyone is emotionally dysregulated without knowing what to look out for. What are those things?
Yeah. So anything that appears larger than what necessarily it should be. So obviously, like if something upsets you, you should feel those feelings because we don't want to go back to the flip side of stuffing, right? But also, like, let's say you're in traffic. Who doesn't get annoyed with someone pulling in front of you? But it's the people who go and like now have to swerve next to them, flip them off, make some sort of gesture signal, roll their window down, yell at them. That's an overreaction to, is it annoying? Absolutely. Should you be frustrated? Sure. But also like the level of rage that some people have, that is emotional dysregulation. Gotcha.
Wow. So it's just the overexertion of whatever is happening at that moment.
Yes. Because as adults, again, if we're driving and in control of a vehicle, we should be able to be in control of our emotions. Something as small as someone cutting in front of you should not send you over the edge.
Right.
And if it is, okay, is that an indicator that, again, maybe you struggle with high levels of anger, perhaps, but also it's possible that it could have been a really tough day and that was your last thing that sent you over the edge. Okay, that's possible too. But also if that is happening regularly for you, either your level of distress tolerance is not that high, meaning that like small things send you over every time. That's something that should concern you.
So like you like talked about, you know, like controlling your emotions. Well, what exactly are the difference between emotional dysregulation and also controlling those emotions?
Yeah. So using that same example of being in traffic. Okay. So if I'm frustrated, someone pulled over pulled over in front of me, I might be like, oh my gosh, I might sigh under my breath. I might make a comment to myself. I might roll my eyes. I might be like, wow, that guy's an idiot, whatever, right? Like I might say something within the context of myself. And so for me, it's like, okay, but now I'm over it, right? Like they're in front of me. I'm not going to do anything about it because what is that really going to do?
Right.
Like there's nothing productive that comes from an overreaction. And so my like feeling the feelings is doing something that, like I said, those examples, but then it's like you move on.
Right.
Someone who's dysregulated doesn't move on.
So
It
they
escalates.
stay there and they just fester. And
And so then imagine they have now escalated. They made a gesture. The car drove off. The situation is no longer. They're still upset. They go home, right? And their wife or husband says something that's annoying. They're going to blow up at them.
Right.
Or the dog does something. They're going to kick the dog, right? Those are extreme reactions to like, I wasn't even there when this happened in the traffic, but now your emotions are transferring into other situations.
Wow. And you know, I do want to talk about like why does that happen? Because you kind of touched on it earlier when I brought up you know, like internal family system, meaning the childhood. I do want to give more clarity as far as where it comes from. Because again, people online talk about it, but they're usually talking about that moment that it happened. And usually it's like someone being labeled, someone being attacked. But then there's a reason why those things happen. And I want to get your take, like, why do you think that happened? You know, going back to your example.
Yeah. So there can be trauma that happens as a child to where parts of you get stuck, or it's a learned behavior based on how you watched your parents interact or the people who are your caregivers.
Right.
And so it's, if I watch someone whom I care about and they're constantly in rage or they're constantly frustrated or they're showing all sense of overwhelm, I'm going to learn that and think that it's okay because it's what's being modeled for me.
Right.
And so then if no one over time says to me, hey, I noticed that you do this when you get overwhelmed or when you get frustrated, then I'm going to continue that behavior into adulthood. And so again, it can be trauma. It can be a learned response based on childhood experiences. And even you can flip that on the other side. Let's say you have a quote unquote great childhood. Let's say you're in sports and you have a coach who constantly overreacts and you look up to that coach, you're going to learn that from them too.
Wow.
And so, expensive. Yeah. And again, if no one comes along and helps correct in a positive way, then you're going to continue things like that. Or like, again, even let's say like you didn't learn it as a kid and you have a boss now and they're constantly that way. And over time you're influenced by them. You may change the way that you respond.
Wow. No, yeah. You know, actually, I read a report by Gallup and I remember it says that 70% of employee engagement is solely determined by those frontline managers. Like literally their behavior within the workplace is 70% of it is determined by the people that lead them, the people that they have to report to. And usually employees are leaving because those leaders are emotionally dysregulated because they cannot trust them. They don't feel safe for them.
Yeah.
And then I do want to go into like addressing that because I talk to a lot of leaders and sometimes what I see is like they have no desire to go into that aspect of themselves and actually work and deal with it. What would you say to that leader today if you had that opportunity one-on-one and you were trying to tell them about a behavior that they do or it's impacting the workforce and is affecting those people's life? They have to go home. That cycle, the vicious cycle keeps continuing and it's coming back into the workplace, but it normally is coming from those leaders. What would you tell them?
Yes, it's the art of self-reflection. You have to create time and you have to be intentional with reflecting how you're coming across, how you're being perceived, and how you're influencing. And if you want to see certain behaviors from the people who you're influencing, you have to be aware of how you're portraying yourself first.
Right.
You can't expect someone to be emotionally regulated if you are not. Right. And that even, I mean, is a great parenting example. We expect our kids to have an emotion and then get control of it when we don't even do that ourselves.
Right.
And that is like...
No, that's facts.
Yeah, it's not possible.
Yeah.
Yeah. Your kid is like, again, even an example of like two siblings. If let's say two siblings are playing, one knocks something over that they're doing and one blows up, they did that. They reacted that way because they've watched you parent that way.
Wow. That's scary. Because I'm like, okay. Because I just yelled, you gotta know the other day to Mercy. I don't even know what that means. I'm going to say, you gotta know, but then he just came out, no. Because I was trying to finish the sentence and he's doing something else. I was like, you gotta know. Okay, maybe, okay. Well, thank you for that. So like, let's say as a parent, you see a child doing some behavior that seems dysregulated and out of control. How do you approach that?
Yeah, so not in that moment because they can't hear you.
Maybe that'll be a book someday. You gotta know.
But afterwards, when they're calm again, it's a follow-up conversation of, hey, I noticed that when this happened, this is how you responded. And you can try and ask, like, can you tell me like what you're feeling in your body? Like,
Right.
did they feel themselves, getting angry? Did they have the sweaty palms, all the different body signals, that your heart started racing, that type of thing. But it's basically, again, you can give great examples of how you respond, but still, if it does not match how you're responding, they will still follow your lead.
Wow, that's wild. Very, very, very scary having someone little just watching you and observing and learning. But like in that moment, do you just like be quiet, be calm, and just kind of observe them? And then wait for them to calm and then talk to them? Because my childhood was like, I don't even have that agency to be to be that. Any movement you make usually gets slapped or smacked or kicked or any kind of physical control to stop you from doing that. So it's like now I'm like, I don't know what to do because I don't have the desire to hit him anywhere whatsoever.
Sure.
But then I'm just like, I don't know what to do. So I just watch him and just wait for him to be done. Or do you just like get down in his level and talk to him?
Yeah, I mean, it depends on the situation, but it's you allow him to feel your calmness.
Oh.
So you don't match whatever level of intensity he's having.
Mm-hmm.
You allow him to pull from your groundedness.
Right.
And so that could be like, getting on his level and just sitting next to him while he calms down. It could be offering, do you want a hug?
Mm-hmm.
It could be talking after they're calm, but it's the big part of it is allowing them. And this is where you come into co-regulation, is where they borrow from you. And you don't want it to be an escalation. You want it to be a calming of down. And so that's where the co-regulation occurs.
Wow. It's like so much responsibility to like raise a little one.
Yeah.
That's wild. But yeah, thank you for that. And then, if for some reason I'm just like all the African side of me, they're all kissing their teeth watching this right now. like take your shoe and beat him. So I guess they're all emotionally dysregulated. But you also touched on the coach aspect, which is scary, knowing that they can even learn from a coach that they look up to.
Yeah.
And one of the things that my coach used to tell us was to toughen up. This guy was not the greatest guy. I don't know how he got that position, but he was physically abusive too. Like, and then, in sports, sometimes when something happened, it stays within there, and you don't go home and talk to your parents about it.
Sure.
Because if you do that, then you are out of the team. Because usually the parents freak out and take their kids out, and then you lose that opportunity. But like as a child, how can they identify that? Maybe come back home and talk to their parents. And as a parent, when you hear that, how do you approach that without ruining the child's future and pull them out of everything because of one bad person that they look up to?
Sure. Yeah, I think it goes back to empowerment. Like, how do you empower your kid to be able to see that, oh, wow, the way this coach is reacting is not how I want to respond or, how I want to be influenced. And so if they go and talk to their parent about what they're observing or what they're experiencing, is then like, how do I match or like show up in a space where this is kind of being projected onto me? And if it gets worse, in my opinion, the opportunity of whatever that coach is allowing for them, they can find that elsewhere where that influence isn't so negative.
Huh. So like, how do you deal with the coach personally, as a parent when that's happening? Do you talk to them, or do you just like try to get them fired? I don't know.
I mean, it goes to like, what's the age of the child we're talking about? If it's older, my personal opinion is that it needs to come from the student, because the coach could easily go like, oh, here's another overprotective helicopter parent who's trying to control what I'm doing.
How it goes.
Right. And so then their ego is going to get involved and say, well, look at how many kids I've coached and look how successful I am. And who are you to tell me to do things differently?
Right.
And so generally it's not going to be received well. And so I think it should come from the student. And if the student isn't getting anywhere, it could be reinforced by the parent. So they approach it as a team where the student and parent tries to say something. And then if it still is being shut down, then there's a lot of other better coaches.
Right.
And I would just leave
Find a
the
different
organization.
program. Yeah.
Because that's not worth, like, I mean, that will affect the kid's confidence, even if they feel empowered.
Yeah.
Because imagine that you are putting in the effort, you're putting in the work, you have a positive attitude, and you have someone who's constantly telling you you're not good enough and you're not going to make it.
Right.
Like, there is an element of like, I need to challenge you and push you, right?
Yeah.
Like this isn't going to be handed to you. But if it's to where it's destructive, like, your kid will not thrive.
No, yeah. I mean, that was me as a kid. That's why I actually quit soccer. Because, I played soccer pretty much everywhere. And then when I came to the U.S., the coach that we had, he was like very different. And then everything was so structured, which I know structure is needed. But then he was an a-hole about it.
Yeah.
Like, it was in the middle of the field, because I grew up playing soccer very differently. Like, they let you have a little bit of freedom.
Sure.
And then you collaborate with everyone else. But here, you're not allowed to dribble. You have to follow what the coach tell you to do. Pass here. Open the midfield. It's just like a chess game. I'm like, this has no freedom. And I remember whenever I would dribble, it was always a big problem. And usually he would yell at me in front of everyone. And then I started getting smaller and smaller and smaller.
Yeah.
And by the time I realized, I kept telling myself, well, I don't like soccer anymore. And then I just left. And now one of my cousin plays in Saudi. He just had a game with like Cristiano Ronaldo. I was like, this could have been me. This could have been me. I'll put a meme here. This could have been me. But yeah, that's because I didn't have the right coach to guide me and be like, hey, I know you want to do this, but trust this system. It's going to work for you.
Yeah.
And if you understand it, then you can maybe figure out how we can incorporate that there.
Yeah.
Because you have other people that you are not passing. Maybe next time consider passing them the ball. But it was just like yelling. Yeah. You can't do this. You were very selfish. It was very selfish. I was like, damn. And I literally started telling myself, when people asked me why you quit soccer, I said, well, I was just very selfish. I didn't like passing people. And because that's what he told me for so long, and I genuinely believe it. But like, from an organization standpoint, how do they identify that? And number one, and also what can they do when they identify maybe a coach who's leading kids is not in the right person. They may have the talent and the expertise, but then emotionally they're ruining these kids. Like, how can a company or like an organization, a program, go about that?
Yeah, I mean, ideally they would have a team set in place that recognizes those indicators, and especially if they have students or parents where there's multiple people providing feedback that is negative about what is happening. I would hope that they would follow up on that. Sometimes someone's name or influence can trump feedback, which is unfortunate. Because then they're going, to look at what this person has done, when it's like, okay, well, what's the larger loss that could happen here if we allow them to be this much influence and leadership?
Right. No, yeah, that is usually so much unrealized expense and cost when you have a leader who's emotionally dysregulated. It's not someone that's safe around people in general. Like, there's a bunch of research that I'm obsessed with like Gallup. I think they said around $500 billion the U.S. spends on just like retention, trying to retain people, disengagement, quiet quitting, all these issues. The U.S. is spending $500 billion every year because people are not emotionally regulated. People are dysregulated. And also there are different factors that makes it hard too, which is going to be my next question. How much does stress plays into all of this? Yeah,
it's generally a very large part, right? Like, some of this can be learned, and it's just the way that you operate over time. But for sure, when you are wearing multiple hats and you have high levels of stress, your ability to be more regulated is going to be lower.
Right. Wow. So basically, deal with the stress first. Maybe that can give one a capacity to actually see that this is deeper than just stress.
Yes.
I do want to talk about some ways to be emotionally regulated.
Yeah.
Like, if you find yourself, what are some tips that someone can do in order for them to realize, all right, this is where I am at. This is where I need to be.
So I think it starts with self-reflection. I also am a big fan of the people who you allow to speak into your life. If you are in a position of leadership or influence and you don't have anyone at a level above you or whom you consider a mentor, then you're not allowing many voices to point out your areas of growth.
Right.
And so if no one's able to say to you, hey, you know, when this happens, this is the way that you react and this is how people feel in your presence, you're not going to correct that behavior because no one's courageous enough to approach you.
Right.
And so go to self-reflection, have mentors in your life that you give permission to say, when you see these things, please call it out on me. And that can be done in a lovingly and respectful way. And then have the ability to listen and follow through. And then for like your own personal things is like, can you practice mindfulness? Can you practice meditation? Can you do some sense of journaling? But again, all of that is a level of self-reflection that you would need to know that, okay, if I'm more grounded, I'm going to show up differently in the space around me.
Right. And then another thing that I picked up while I was doing this research, is someone talking about just like fight, flight, and freeze. And they've united FAWN, FAUWN, which was new to me. How does this look like? How does this issue looks like when it comes to someone who's emotionally dysregulated? And
so I think in a FAWN sense is that they have discovered, or even an instinctive survival mechanism is that if I don't respond this way, then my life is at threat. And so that can, whether you're a child, a young adult, or an adult, if you feel like your life is in danger and this is the only way that you're going to survive, this is the way that you've basically adapted to the surrounding.
Okay. All right. So like as someone who is a young adult, how does that look like? Because sometimes, in that age, maybe this individual is already in a home, everything is fine, but they find themselves in that situation. Like, how do they get out of that? Because earlier you mentioned that when it comes to emotional dysregulation, especially for a coach with the child, sometimes the child has to be the one to start talking. But like in a home, how does that look like?
So let's say it's a partner situation and you have learned that your response is fawn because you feel like your life is at risk. I mean, it will be challenging, but you would need to find some way to feel empowered and find some sense of security to have a different response. Right. Because you're going to go into survival, right? And so if your survival is, if this person is coming at me and the only way I can survive is to give them what they want, you're going to continue doing that until you figure out, how do I get out of this person's way to where I can survive without them. Right. And so I don't know, I can't speak in every situation, but that's fine. It's just that instinctive, like that's their maladaptive response to just surviving.
Yeah. No, yeah. I can relate to that as a very traumatized child in the past, to now, talking about this on the podcast, I'm always fascinated when I find things that reminds me, or like I could relate it to someone, it's to something or a moment in my life. So I again, thank you for like helping me and helping us understand just this term, emotional dysregulation. I'm going to do my best not to just throw it at everybody else. But is there any smaller tips that someone can get? Maybe some breathwork, for example, when they find themselves in their situation?
Yeah. I mean, I think, we hear just breathe so much that we kind of forget about it. But honestly, if you can get in control of your breathing, you're going to get control of your parasympathetic nervous system and you're going to calm down that instinctive response, whatever it may be. And so if you're in control of your breath and you're in control of how much you're inhaling, how much you're exhaling, and the length of those breaths in between. And there's like box breathing, there's 4 counts in, hold 4 counts, 4 counts out. And but there's so many. But when you're focusing on that, you're allowing your rational brain to come back online and it's going to slow your heart rate. It's going to when your rational brain comes online, it's going to be like, okay, what are my options here? And it's going to begin strategizing on how to get out of a certain situation. Right. And so the more that you can practice getting in control and calming down your body and getting your brain back online, you're going to be more in control of whatever situation you're in.
Right. Well, I think we've definitely covered this pretty well. So again, thank you so much for just helping us understand this better. I look forward to the next one.
Yeah, sounds good.